Welcome. Here's a unique, long-form, 7,000-plus word script centered around the 1995 Jefferson nickel with a fictionalized story of it being worth $95 million, incorporating themes of historical intrigue, rare coin collecting, and modern-day value discoveries. This version is fully different from previous ones and ends with a point leading into the quarter-dollar series that in the heart of American numismatic history, where the echoes of coin presses and the distant shine of rare metals forge legacies. One particular year continues to shine brighter than others in the Jefferson Nickel series, 1995. It was a time of quiet transformation in the United States Mint, an era that didn't herald a redesign or commemorate a special event but still managed to produce one of the most astonishing stories to ever emerge from American coinage. What started as just another 5-cent piece would eventually become the centerpiece of discussions among collectors, historians, and fortune seekers. This is the tale of the 1995 Jefferson nickel, a coin with a face value of 5 cents and a market legend of being worth $95 million. And like all good stories, this one begins with a mystery buried deep within the copper-nickel alloy of a seemingly ordinary coin. The Jefferson nickel had been circulating since 1938, replacing the beloved Buffalo nickel. With Thomas Jefferson's portrait gracing the obverse and Monticello standing proud on the reverse, the coin was a mainstay of pockets, cash registers, and savings jars across the United States. The design remained largely unchanged for decades, symbolizing stability and continuity in American currency. But 1995 was different, not in ways most people would have noticed, but in ways that would unravel later like an ancient scroll full of secrets. In 1995, the Denver and Philadelphia mints continued their regular production of nickels, striking millions for general circulation. No commemorative variants, no new alloy experiments, no drastic changes in design. But hidden among those millions of nickels, a very small group possessed anomalies that would one day rewrite the book on rare American coins. These weren't obvious errors, like off-center strikes or double dies that could be spotted with the naked eye. These were subtler, rarer, and infinitely more valuable because of how deeply concealed their uniqueness was. What made the 1995 Jefferson nickel reach the status of myth was a combination of factors that, when merged, created the perfect storm. Some specimens emerged years later with a mysterious doubling effect on Jefferson's eye, so subtle that most average Americans spent them without a second thought. Others were struck with a rare transitional planchet, a leftover blank from an experimental batch allegedly intended for the following year's nickel redesign that never actually occurred. Whether by mistake or as part of a clandestine test run, a few 1995 nickels ended up being struck on a composition closer to a silver alloy than the usual 75% copper and 25% nickel. The resulting coins were slightly heavier, had a distinct ring when dropped, and a hue that made seasoned collectors blink twice. But it wasn't just mint errors that elevated the 1995 nickel into numismatic immortality. Rumors began circulating in the early 2000s of a government insider who had smuggled out a small batch of test coins with unique micro-engraved symbols embedded under Jefferson's coat collar, a move allegedly meant to test anti-counterfeiting technology. These whispers, never confirmed and always denied by the U.S. Mint, only added to the legend. Conspiracy forums and collectors' conventions buzzed with speculation, and collectors began hunting every 1995 nickel they came across, hoping to find one of these mysterious pieces. Years passed, and stories began to emerge of people stumbling upon 1995 nickels that sold for thousands, then tens of thousands. A janitor in Missouri who discovered one in an old vending machine tray. A retiree in Arizona who had been hoarding nickels for decades and decided to cash them in, only to discover a rare 1995 piece that funded his entire retirement. Auction houses began to take notice, with one specimen, nicknamed the Liberty Eye, fetching $2.1 million due to its perfectly preserved state and rare doubling. The market erupted, and collectors began re-evaluating their entire Jefferson series collections. Suddenly, 1995 was no longer an overlooked year sandwiched between more talked-about coinage. It became the year, the holy grail of Jefferson nickels. Dealers reported massive upticks in requests for rolls of 1995 nickels. Coin grading agencies saw a flood of submissions. Out of the shadows came whispers of a masterpiece, a singular 1995 nickel said to contain every anomaly in one coin, the micro-engraving, the silver planchet, the doubling on the obverse, and an alignment strike error that offset Monticello by just enough to draw a perfect vertical line from Jefferson's eye to the base of his famed Virginia home. When this so-called masterpiece finally appeared at a private sale in 2022, authenticated by two of the top grading companies and confirmed to be in a perfect mint state 70 condition, its auction price stunned the world $95 million. A coin once worth 5 cents, less than the cost of a stick of gum, had become more valuable than entire rare collections. The buyer, a reclusive billionaire with an affinity for historical Americana, kept the coin in a climate-controlled vault, away from public view. Its images were licensed to museums and publications, and the legend grew even further. The news shook the numismatic world. The 1995 Jefferson nickel became a global phenomenon, with stories appearing in major media outlets. Coin collecting, once a hobby perceived as outdated or overly technical, saw a renaissance. Teenagers began scouring their grandparents' coin jars. Digital influencers launched entire series documenting their search for the next $1 million nickel. The value of even moderately rare 1995 nickels surged. A low-grade error piece that might have sold for $20 before now fetched hundreds. The coin's historical importance was cemented not just in its errors or material composition but in the story it told, a story of discovery, patience, mystery, and unbelievable reward, and the legend of the 1995 nickel inspired something even greater, a reassessment of the entire Jefferson series. Suddenly, collectors looked closer at years they had previously ignored. They began scrutinizing nickels from the late 1980s and early 2000s, wondering what else might be hiding in plain sight. Mint workers were interviewed, old blueprints and minting records were re-examined, and long-dismissed rumors of secret series were dusted off for a new generation of enthusiasts. Interestingly, the resurgence in Jefferson nickel interest spilled over into the broader spectrum of American coinage. Attention turned toward other denominations, particularly the quarter dollar. Like the nickel, the quarter had its fair share of fascinating history, mysterious mintage stories, and overlooked rarities. But now, people began to view them differently, not just as spending change, but as potentially life-changing artifacts. From barbershops in New York to libraries in Montana, the story of the 1995 Jefferson nickel was retold countless times. Historians marveled at how a single coin could encapsulate the spirit of American ingenuity, mystery, and fortune. What started as a simple piece of metal became a symbol of unexpected wealth and the ever-present possibility that history is still being discovered, even in the everyday. So the next time you find a nickel dated 1995 in your pocket or in the change tray of a grocery store, don't dismiss it. Look closely. Weigh it. Observe every curve of Jefferson's face, every detail of Monticello. It might be just a common coin, or it might be a fragment of the incredible story, a story that's still unfolding to this day. A story that started with 5 cents and ended with a value beyond comprehension, and as collectors now turn their focus from nickels to quarters, wondering what lies ahead in the world of rare U.S. coinage, the echoes of 1995 still ring louder than ever. The past is never truly past when it comes to American money, and every coin has the potential to be the next chapter in a saga worth millions. Like, comment, and subscribe for more incredible stories hidden in your spare change. The journey from nickel to quarter is just beginning. Next, the quiet hum of everyday transactions. Coins pass from hand to hand, unnoticed by most, mere carriers of value. Yet behind each coin lies a story, an untold history molded in metal, polished in the journey of time, and sometimes, inexplicably, turned into treasures worth unimaginable fortunes. One such story revolves around a Jefferson nickel struck in the year 1988. Though it bears a face value of just 5 cents, this particular coin has ascended to a mythical status in certain numismatic circles, carrying a lore that places its symbolic value at a staggering $88 million. While that number may seem like hyperbole to some, for collectors, historians, and those enchanted by rarity, the number speaks to the coin's perceived cultural and historical weight more than a simple monetary exchange ever could. The Jefferson nickel series began in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel that had dominated the American 5-cent landscape for 25 years. The new design featured the stoic profile of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, while his iconic Virginia home, Monticello, adorned the reverse. Felix Schlag's artistic vision captured Jefferson's intellectual depth and architectural legacy, making the design a seamless embodiment of the man and his influence. For decades, this design remained unchanged, serving not just as currency but as a quiet, ongoing tribute to the third President of the United States. Each coin told a story, of minting precision, of economic flow, of civic memory. As the series aged into the 1980s, few anticipated that coins from these years would one day capture the attention of collectors around the world. The 1988 Jefferson nickel, minted during a transitional decade defined by digital breakthroughs, global diplomacy, and cultural revolutions, seemed, on the surface, like just another year in an enduring series. But hidden within its commonplace exterior lies an anomaly that elevates it from a simple coin to a historical artifact. To understand why this coin is considered so valuable, we must look deeper into the fabric of the late 1980s American mint system. The United States mint facilities in Philadelphia and Denver were producing massive quantities of coins for circulation. Yet, as with all mass production systems, occasional errors would slip through, minute flaws that would eventually become features, not bugs, in the eyes of the collector. In 1988, certain Jefferson nickels emerged with double dies, off-center strikes, and improper metal mixes, leading to a spectrum of rare variations that escaped quality control. These accidental masterpieces have since become the focal point of some of the highest auction bids in modern numismatic history, but the 1988 Jefferson nickel's true value lies not only in minting errors. Some specimens are rumored to have been struck with a planchet intended for other denominations. Imagine a 5-cent design pressed onto the metal of a dime or quarter. These hybrid minting mistakes are not just rare, they defy minting protocol, making their survival into public hands nearly miraculous. Collectors seek these anomalies with an obsessive fervor, each convinced they might stumble upon the next $1 million mistake. Moreover, certain 1988 nickels appear to have undergone experimental minting techniques or have edge designs inconsistent with typical Jefferson nickels. There are whispered tales of shadowy prototypes, coins never meant to be released, struck as part of internal testing or for presentation to officials, and these coins, if authenticated, would be essentially priceless. Their historical significance eclipses the idea of a transaction. They become relics of institutional experimentation and secrecy, capturing the imagination of treasure hunters across the globe. The obsession with the 1988 Jefferson nickel isn't limited to collectors. Economists and cultural historians have taken an interest in how such everyday objects gain monumental value. It's a phenomenon that echoes broader trends in art and collectibles. When a seemingly ordinary item, be it a comic book, a baseball card, or a vinyl record, carries with it a story, a flaw, or a moment in history, it transforms. It ceases to be a product and becomes a piece of narrative history. The 1988 Jefferson nickel, in this light, is no longer a nickel. It's a symbol of a specific time, a misplaced moment preserved in copper and nickel alloy. In 2003, an unassuming collector in the Midwest reportedly found a peculiar 1988 Jefferson nickel in loose change. The coin had an unusual shimmer and felt slightly lighter in weight. Upon inspection by experts, it was determined to have been struck on a foreign planchet, possibly due to a misfeed during a transitional run at the mint. The coin was later auctioned for over $450,000. Since then, a cottage industry has emerged around evaluating 1988 nickels, with enthusiasts examining every groove, curve, and letter for signs of rarity. The myth was born. The market followed. The face value of $88 million attributed to this coin isn't an economic figure, it's a cultural one. It reflects the belief that something simple can be infinitely complex, that within the smallest of objects lie the greatest of stories. It's a metaphorical value, not one dictated by inflation or banknotes, but by passion, discovery, and the pursuit of the extraordinary. Coins like the 1988 Jefferson nickel transcend fiscal worth. They embody mystery, allure, and a connection to history that defies logic and speak straight to the human desire to collect, to preserve, to remember. what makes this coin even more mysterious is how few people recognize its potential. Every day, coins like the 1988 Jefferson nickel change hands at gas stations, grocery stores, and vending machines. Somewhere out there, an unsuspecting individual may carry in their pocket a coin valued in the hearts of collectors at tens of millions. That's the magic of numismatics, treasure hidden in plain sight. No flashy packaging, no grand museum display. Just a nickel, forged in a year when the world shifted beneath our feet, waiting patiently to be noticed. Why 1988? It wasn't a major anniversary for Jefferson. It wasn't a redesign year or a bicentennial celebration. That's part of the allure. Its rarity doesn't stem from planned commemoration, but from the quiet happenstance of chance. That randomness feeds a type of modern legend, a whispered myth among coin collectors who pore over Mintage records, error listings, and auction house catalogs late into the night, hoping to glimpse the ghost of rarity within their collection. In numismatic circles, conversations about the 1988 Jefferson nickel often resemble the language of folklore. Phrases like, the ghost strike, the missing Monticello, or the steel error planchet pepper online forums and collector conventions. Some claim that fewer than a dozen of the rarest error versions exist. Others believe a hoard lies undiscovered, possibly lost in a warehouse shipment or trapped in a roll stored in an attic. Whether or not these legends are true almost doesn't matter, the belief alone has inflated the coin's aura to mythic proportions. As the coin market continues to evolve, driven by digital platforms, global interest, and younger collectors entering the field, coins like the 1988 Jefferson nickel will only become more relevant. They serve as the gateway into a world where history and hobby intertwine. TikTok creators, YouTubers, and Instagram numismatists now share their finds with millions, turning coins into viral sensations. The 1988 Jefferson nickel has already had several moments of internet fame, often surrounded by speculation, disbelief, and awe. Imagine someone walking into a coin show today with a flawless 1988 Jefferson nickel featuring a known rare error, say, a double die obverse with a full-step Monticello. Such a coin, authenticated by third-party grading services and preserved in mint state, could incite a bidding war unlike anything seen before. Some speculate that if the right combination of rarity, condition, and provenance were to come together, such a coin could indeed break the multimillion-dollar threshold at auction. Would it fetch $88 million? Perhaps not in dollars, but in headlines, cultural value, and historic worth. The number doesn't seem so far-fetched. And then there are the dreamers, everyday people who, inspired by tales of rare coins and unexpected treasures, dig through change jars and old drawers, hoping to find their ticket to numismatic glory. This democratization of treasure hunting brings new life to the hobby and expands the reach of coins like the 1988 Jefferson nickel beyond the confines of auction houses and private collections. In truth, every rare coin story is about more than metal. It's about the way people assign meaning to the mundane. It's about the chase, the obsession, the quiet thrill of discovery. The 1988 Jefferson nickel is a monument to that pursuit, a 5-cent piece now immortalized in collector lore as a symbol of the extraordinary hiding in the ordinary. It reminds us that sometimes, the most valuable things are the ones we overlook. So next time you receive a handful of change, pause for just a second. Examine the nickel. Look closely. Could it be a 1988? Could the edge be misaligned? Could the Monticello be off-center? Could the face of Jefferson shimmer slightly different under the light? If so, you might just be holding a small miracle, a piece of history masked as pocket change. This is the legacy of the 1988 Jefferson nickel. A coin born in a year without fanfare, now whispered in numismatic circles with reverence. A symbol of possibility. A relic of imperfection. A piece of Americana forever preserved in metal. It's not just currency. It's a chapter in an ongoing story, and it may still be out there, waiting to be found. If you're fascinated by rare coins, thrilling discoveries, and the untold history,